Coach Jared Cornfield, welcome to the Running Effect podcast. I would say, what is it, 5 p.m. here? I would say, how are you doing this evening? I fear that it is night in Paris. What's the time and how are we doing?
Hey Dominic, thanks for having me again. It's a little later here in Paris with the time difference getting close to midnight here, but no, enjoying my evening over here and happy to have a late night talk with you.
I believe in the over 400 episode history of the show, you are the latest ever guest from a timing perspective. So you want to medal there. Let's talk about the scene in Paris. What's the atmosphere like? What's the energy?
It's cool. I've been here just for a few days now, and to be honest, I haven't like explored too much. Just been kind of between my hotel and the USOC High Performance Center, which is a kind of home base for US athletes, and they have dining hall and track and lots of just everything you could kind of need from a training perspective. And so I haven't been to the competition venue and things yet, but it's definitely cool to be in a city that's really rallied around these games, and there's definitely a certain energy about it. But yeah, I'll kind of get to dive into it more, this weekend, heading into competition. I'll be over the track in the stadium on Friday, so I've got a couple more days to really hop into the full immersive experience.
If you weren't a runner, people can go back and listen to our first conversation with each other, hear a little bit about your running journey. If you weren't a runner, what sport would you partake in?
In the Summer Olympics or just in general?
I would assume they would coincide with each other, but maybe not. Go for both.
No, no. Well, I'll say a sport that used to be in the Summer Olympics, but is not currently. But I'm a baseball guy. I played it for 10 years. I love it so much. That was my first true love and true passion. And so it used to be in the Olympics. And fun fact, I was born in just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And when the 1996 Olympics happened, I was 5 years old. And one of my earliest memories is my dad taking me to an Olympic baseball game in Atlanta because the Olympics still had baseball then, and all I remember was I was in the right field bleachers, and there was a home run ball hit like in our row, and my dad was like going down to reach for it, and he didn't get it, but the dad and his son next to us got it, and they let me like hold it and stuff. So that's like one of my earliest memories was from an Olympic baseball game, which is not in the current Paris games. But yeah, that was actually my first love and what I would probably choose to dive into if I had the chance.
I have to ask if you have a team, specific team that you follow, are you as passionate about that team as Zachary Barker is about his Philadelphia 76ers? That man is a
Yes, and
fan, a fan.
he's a fan, but I think he would admit that yes, the Atlanta Braves, like I said, I was born in Georgia. And so, they play 162 games a year, and any single time I can have the game on, I have it on at my house. My wife might not enjoy it as much as I do, but I'm such a big fan. I love the sport so much. I understand it, and that's my team. I'm a diehard Atlanta Braves fan, and so I pour a lot of my heart into them. So yeah, I would put me over Zach there, but maybe he can argue if you have him on the podcast again. But we give each other crap for sure. We've got some different teams we cheer for, but he's a big Sixers fan. I'm a big Braves fan.
I'm not sure if I've ever brought this up on a podcast with a coach before, but it's something I've thought about and had conversations with people in my circle about. It's a good topic to talk about on the run when you're trying to kill some miles. I've always been curious. Do you think that like someone like yourself, high level coach, one of the best coaches in the U.S., potentially the world, uh, could go to another sport, learn a little bit about it, just base information, and be the same equivalent as good in one sport as the other? So basically, like you take a football coach, you bring him with Mike Smith for a year. Do you think they'd be, equivalent? Like if Nick Saban came to the NCAA, you think he's creating a powerhouse? Same with Mike Smith and a football team.
I don't know if I'd be comfortable enough saying that. I have so much respect for like these other sports and the really deep ins and outs of those sports. Like I wouldn't claim to maybe have knowledge on, or it would not maybe be something you could pick up super quickly. Even if you're good in your own sport. I do think a lot of different sports have so many crossovers in things that you could learn from each other, and pieces in philosophies and how you teach young people and how you speak to people. Like I think those things relate greatly among different sports, and a lot of these sports are team sports as well. And so there's relatability all over the place. I wouldn't say like I don't know, if Mike and I decided to be tennis coaches, I don't know if we'd be good tennis coaches. I wouldn't profess to say that, but I do think you can learn so much from watching other coaches in other sports and how they interact with their teams, though it's completely different than maybe track and field and cross country. And I actually really enjoy watching other coaches in other sports, and I think there's a lot to learn there. I think sometimes you can get too stuck in the running world, and yes, there's so much to learn from within the running world. But I think distance coaches get stuck with distance coaches too much, even in the running world. And I think there's so much to learn from sprints and jumps and throws coaches that I really like to pay attention to. And then like I said, more to learn from coaches, doing sports that maybe we don't understand or far beyond. So I think as a coach, I think broadening your horizon to these other aspects and not just being stuck in your own specific world is a really healthy thing.
So word on the street, as an Ohio State fan living in Columbus now, have been an Ohio State fan since I moved to Ohio as a kid. Ryan Day, if he can't get the job done this year, word on the street is they're going to kick him out, and he can't beat the team up north, can't win in the playoffs. So if there's an opening at the table, you and Mike come in, get the guys on double threshold training, get it done. We'll put this theory to work. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm not optimistic that we'll get to see that opportunity happen, but no, I think I'll stick to long distance running and track and field cross country for me.
So whether it's your experience at the 2024 Paris Olympics or just being in Flagstaff surrounded by so many different Olympians, people that Coach Smith coaches, or just, you go on any random trail and you're going to see some professional running team or runner getting some miles in. What are some of the commonalities you see in the people who make it at the highest level in the sport that you think separates the good from the great? The people who make U.S. championships to the people who actually can represent their country and go to Paris.
Yeah, being in Flagstaff in particular, I've had the privilege of just being around pretty consistently a large number of high level athletes that are competing in either the top of the NCAA, like some of our athletes at NAU, or competing at the highest levels in the world. And so it's been awesome to be able to for 9 years just be in Flagstaff and be around those people. And I certainly am very observant of those behaviors and different characteristics and qualities that make up those people. Some commonalities that I see, particularly in older athletes, is those that are successful, I think, have a really good grasp of why they do what they do, and they have a really good grasp, oftentimes, of just like their identity and who they are, and kind of the purpose that they're driven from in their pursuit of this sport at a high level, because it's such a taxing and challenging sport. And when you're pouring everything you can into this, I think the best are first able to be like really rooted and grounded and like, hey, why do I do this, and what am I trying to get out of this? And so that their passion can be fueled, their happiness can be fueled in what they're doing, because they have a really firm understanding of that. And that can be evolving, and most people aren't perfect in that, and that can be a really big struggle, which is really normal. But I would say first, like people that at least like think about that and are working on like getting a better grasp of that, even if they don't have it all together. And then another commonality I see is like people who like see see this process as something that's like, of utmost value and truly like for them, and don't see like, oh, I'm sacrificing things to do this, or I'm giving up something. Like they're like, hey, this is like my joy and my truly what I want to pursue and do. and just to like find out what's possible with, with my body and what I can do with it in this sport. And when you're in that type of thinking, then the way that you think and what you value, I think really reflects things that move you forward in the sport. And so, you know, you're thinking about like, hey, like how can I do things to get better sleep at home? And like that's something you're like thinking about because you value like your recovery so much, because that makes you better in this thing that you love so much. Um, and it sounds easier to be in that place than it is, because of the brutal nature of this sport. It's not fair, and people get hurt, and people's bodies are different, and people have different genetics and different giftings. And so it's just not an even fair thing, and just because you go train 100 miles a week and you pour so much into it, that doesn't mean you're going to be faster than this person or that person. So I think a lot of people struggle with that. And so, when I say the passion for just the pursuit of it, and the passion to just see what's possible with more letting go some of the outcome pieces, I find that those people tend to run faster and have better PRs and discover more of what's possible anyway. And it's certainly not for everybody. I tell our athletes like, hey, you're not normal. You're probably the crazy ones for wanting to do this, and the normal people left a long time ago. And there's nothing wrong with not wanting to do this, but it definitely takes a special person. And I'm just blessed that I get to work with those type of people, because it's fun, and I feel like that's who I am too. And so it's a unique pursuit.
This question might be more applicable to the athletes you help to coach at NAU, and less so the professional realm, because I'm not sure you coach a professional who didn't make the Paris Olympics. But speaking in regards to like the opposite end, I think, at least, and correct me if I'm wrong here if you think otherwise, but I think a lot of times it can be easier to coach the individual who does everything right, and they make the dream come true, right? They make the Olympic team. I feel like a lot of times it's harder when you're helping to coach a kid who they do everything right. They do everything you say to a T. They do all the extra things. They sleep 10 hours a night. They eat all the right things. They eat enough calories, all those things, and things don't work out. How do you coach an athlete in that position? Just as a human element of like, I put so much personal investment into this. That's a question I get a lot from kids. It's like, I did everything right and it still didn't happen. What do I do? I think that's something a lot of people struggle with, that it doesn't get, enough wisdom. People don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah, that's you know, I think first off, being really humbled to the fact that like you're probably a far off from actually doing everything right, and really understanding that the scope of what's possible in this, and the learning that you can have in this is very far reaching. And so there's not very many people that are just like really firing on all cylinders in terms of doing everything possible. And so, you know, just being like, hey, like even though this is really hard right now and I feel like I'm doing everything right, there's probably, still a much larger capacity for me to grow. And that's really exciting, hopefully. But that, yeah, I think that sometimes takes a little humility, and takes like reaching out to people who might be able to guide you and help you in steps along the way to continue expanding your knowledge of how to pursue this. And then also, um, yeah, trying, I definitely try to teach athletes about um, really trying to fall in love with, yeah, and I feel like I've used this word a bunch, but the pursuit of this. And that's different than the outcome of it. And man, I want athletes to be able to line up on the track and line up on the cross country course, and be healthy and be able to really see what's possible on those days. And health is such a big barrier to in this sport. If you're not able to find health, it's heartbreaking, because you maybe get the chance to line up on those starting lines. And so that is a heartbreaking aspect of what we do when that's a really challenging factor. And so, yeah, as a college coach, we put so many resources into that piece alone, of just like, how can we just get you healthy so that you can then find out what's possible. And that's a big barrier in this sport. And it's certainly, when you have those have those struggles, it's hopefully a great opportunity to learn and grow and to find appreciation for the times that you are healthy and able to explore more what's possible. But then, going back to the piece I said on identity, like I think that's an important thing that people should dive into as young, high school athletes or adults, or as you're starting to get older. Because what worries me is when athletes like identity is wrapped up in their performance as a track and field or cross country athlete. I think that's a really dangerous thing, and so yeah, then when you're hurt or you can't even do that, I think that can really spiral some athletes into some really hard places. And so that's why I mentioned that being a really important aspect. I think is working through your why and your purpose and your identity and building kind of a foundation first, so that when you do have hardships, you're able to work through them without it being as harsh maybe or as debilitating. And so yeah, that's what I would maybe say to encourage some of those athletes. And then just trying to surround yourself with really good people, and knowing there's a lot more to learn, and being excited about the capacity maybe to grow and learn and what that can bring in hopefully changing things for you in the future with the possibilities of what you can do in your running.
You mentioned the crucial importance of having a why and having that to come back and ground you. For someone who has probably heard that a bunch on the podcast, because I think it's said a ton, rightfully so. I think it's so important, and the best of the best athletes who come on the podcast say that, which shows you should probably listen to them, find your why. To someone listening who hears you say that, hears other people say that, and they don't quite know where to start or what that means, what would be a process that an athlete could go through to find out what their why is in this sport?
It's a really good question. It's I think first off, um, trying to find people that you trust, that you can ask to help work through that with you, I think is a really good place to start. That could require some vulnerability, or just like, you know, putting yourself out there, that like, hey, this is something you really care about, and you're going to have to, yeah, ask yourself some vulnerable questions, or maybe be vulnerable with somebody else. I think connection with other people is so powerful, and so whether that's your parents or some friends, or just older people that you trust, like, I think that's a really good place to start. Um, and then, because I think that's just going to broaden your perspective, and you're going to get a lot more thoughts outside of your just your own head, because I think that can be a confusing place to start, is just inside your own head. Particularly for young people. Like, I look back at when I was in high school or college, and I'm like, man, I didn't know very much, or I wasn't super well equipped to work through some of those things on my own, or I wouldn't have come up with it on my own. I just was naive. I was just young and had a lot of learning and growing to do. And so that's a place I would start as well. And um, yeah, I think especially young people, I work with 18 to 22-year olds mainly, and college athletes. I think as young adults, yeah, really diving into some deep philosophical, questions as to, you know, why you're here, and purpose in even existence is a really important foundational questions to ask, that I think some young people just don't ever dive into, and trying to discover more about themselves, and what's going on with yeah, us human beings here on earth in this time. And so yeah, some of those reflective pieces I think also help you, create this foundation that then hopefully helps you find these answers to your why, not only with your pursuit of running, but just life in general. I think it intersects and connects. It's not just like running is its own separate thing in your life. So
I've heard this from people a good amount, but also if you really dive deep into some people's why, I think they'll become honest and share this with you, that, and specifically a high level person at running, which is kind of the type of individual who's going to get 20 minutes into a podcast with a really good coach. Probably goes back to their time starting running, maybe sometime in middle school. Maybe they did dual sport and then went into running. They were probably really good at it, and they got a lot of positive affirmation for winning and for running fast. And I think a lot of people gravitate towards the sport because they're really, really good at it. And now I do think that can be a motivating factor, but I don't think it's a sustainable one. And I think you'd agree with me there. Could you speak more on the importance of, finding a sustainable why? And for the people that their why is the positive affirmation they get in school on Monday after winning the Saturday cross country meet, why it's really fun, but it's not going to last. And that's probably not the healthiest way to attack the sport or really any venture in life, coming at it from a very outcome perspective point of view.
Right. Yeah, I think when people talk about being process oriented, when you dive into that and you're like, hey, why is that? I think I think of when you're going down that route, you are focusing on pieces that you have control over versus these outcome pieces, which includes, not only like, yeah, just a example in running, like your place, your time, what happens in a race. A lot of those things you don't have control over. You can have the best race of your life and you get dead last. There's just other people that are better than you that day. You have no control over anybody else. And same with, when you make maybe your identity in this sport about affirmation from other people and the way that makes you feel, it can be a really dangerous, just kind of short-lived thing because, again, you don't have control over that. And yes, you could discover like, hey, I'm pretty good at this level. And when I win, people pay attention to me, or they gave me attention, they give me love. And so I'm going to place my highest value on seeking that so I can receive that from other people. That can be harmful for you, as you grow older, because you're going to have less and less control of that. And, your affirmations are going to come from something that's just like totally out of your control. And so, as coaches, like something that me and Mike really try to do here at NAU is really think about the words that we speak to our athletes and what we place value on, with our words and our actions, so that the things that we place value on are things that are within our athletes' control. And so it's not just being like, hey, we're only excited when we win a conference meet or win the national championships or you get All-American, and that's what we make it all about. It's all these pieces along the way that we're trying to really value and uplift, like how they're getting there, and specifically within the things that they have control over. So how they're thinking, how they're overcoming, how their perspective is, how they, within a race, like the first thing I want to be talking about is like the decisions that they made or the reactions that they had, or just like really uplifting the things that they had control over, rather than being like, hey, you won, that's awesome, or you ran this. It's like, it's important to hopefully be around people that are like-minded in that. So, coaches are in positions of power, and athletes really look up to us and listen to what we have to say and what we value, and they pick up on it. They're so smart. And so if they just think like, hey, my coach or my parents or my friends or, whoever, they only care about these outcome-oriented pieces, then that's a really easy thing to fall into. And that's challenging, right? Because our athletes, they don't have control over what I'm going to say, or Coach Smith, or again, what other people are going to do. But, really trying to be an example of that for our athletes, because I have control over that as a coach. And, even if you're not in that environment, trying to discover that for yourself and like placing value on those things that you have control over. So you don't fall into this very easy trap of like validation from just others or things that you have absolutely no control over. And it's just going to be a wild roller coaster ride that is either going to be great or it's going to be disastrous. And that's, maybe not a great way to live, or is certainly not sustainable, I think.
Speaking to the audience who's has an upcoming cross country season, will race soon, or I'm sure these lessons are also applicable to really any race. So people doing marathons in the fall, whatever it might be. in their own training and ventures. And I know you don't know every single listener, so obviously your answer, I'm sure, would be tailored to an individual if you knew who they were and their strengths and weaknesses. But generally, to the listener, what are some simple ways you think they can improve this cross country season, marathon season, whatever you might call it, next three
Sure,
months
sure.
of life?
Um, well, I'll speak to those that are in a team environment. Like let's say a lot of high school athletes are heading into cross country season, or college athletes heading into a cross country season this fall. You're in a team environment, and that's important. And so I think, man, so many of the ways that you can grow as an athlete have nothing to do with the training or the racing, especially when you're in those environments. And so, I think like if you get back into preseason or cross country camp soon with your teams, to take advantage of like how can I build more connection with those around me? How can I uplift my teammates? How can I be on the lookout for like the weakest members of our team? How can I like bring people together, make this like way more than just about myself? I think that's an amazing place to start. I think you'll discover probably more about yourself within that. But then you'll yeah, when you tap into this like team aspect of what we do, and making it way more about than just about yourself, I think you actually give yourself way greater capacity to discover more about what's possible for you, because you're broadening your horizons, your perspectives. You're probably going to learn more. You're going to listen more, and so just by attacking these things that have to do with human interaction and connection, that's like a that actually I think makes a big difference in your running, and I think that's a really amazing place to start. That has nothing to do with like do this type of workout or do this type of training, but maybe just be like more like watchful and listen and try to see if you can soak in more from the people around you, and just focus on building connection. Talk to that person that maybe you've never talked to before, or you know try to bring in that person who's maybe having a hard time, and watch what that does for you in your training, in your running, in just being more excited about the team that you're on and the culture that you're around. And that's a yeah, that one's for free. That one you have control over. You can explore those things, and has nothing to do with how good your threshold is or tempos are or how fast you're racing. But like, watch, I bet it'll impact those things in a positive way.
Obviously, there are the examples of kids who are listening who, might be competing for the Annex N team title, and, the top 15 are all really close. In my experience in high school, I think there were 12 guys on the team, including me. And I was probably the only one who ran over 30 miles a week and really cared about the sport. And so it was very difficult to pour into the guys on the team. And I tried to find ways in which I could, or I was challenged in different ways, pouring into them and trying to make them better. And also just like realizing, some people, your goal is not even to make the regional meet, and you just want to have fun after school, and kind of humbling myself in that, and trying to enter into their world. What would you say to someone listening after what you said there, in terms of if they have a team that just completely lacks ambition, kind of my situation, what would you say to them in terms of pouring into their teammates, and actually the benefit you can get from just being a selfless individual, and how that'll not just benefit you as a runner, but more specifically as a human being in life?
Yeah, I think part of selflessness is expecting nothing in return too from those that you're trying to build connection with. So not saying, "Hey, I'm trying to build connection so I can get something out of this," but making it about like, "Hey, even if this has nothing to do with uh, maybe my teammate like is not going to become a better runner, like it's still being caring and gracious, and exercising these just like human connection pieces that are even outside of the sport. I just think they can have direct correlation with what's possible within the sport, and just exercising um, yeah, those those aspects of just human connection. And so, if you have teammates that maybe aren't as passionate as you, and struggle with wanting to train, or aren't as excited to compete, like, you know, instead of making it about like, hey, how can I make them a better runner? Just be like, hey, maybe what can I learn from them, or how can I just have a positive interaction with them, and watch how that might encourage them to maybe pursue, or explore what you're pursuing or exploring with your sport, because they see like this person is it really really cares deeply about connection, and team, and they're very passionate about what they're doing, and that example is really positive. Maybe let's go check out and explore what they're doing, and so yeah, when I was in high school as a freshman, I feel like I jumped into a team that yeah, wasn't like super serious, and I loved those guys, and something that I did was just like, hey, I'm gonna control what I can control, and I do want to be serious and really really care about this, but like I led by example in that, and what started happening is there was a trickle effect to that, and people started being like, hey, that seems to be working out pretty well for him. I want to try that a little bit too. Even if it wasn't in the same ways that I was doing it, I definitely saw like an impact in ways, and that really helped build that program and that culture. And so it doesn't have to be all at once or in your face. And so I would just say, hey, keep doing the right things and keep being really positive towards your teammates and the people around you, and encouraging, and still put yourself out there to build connections with people, even if their level of passion isn't the same as yours. Like being a great person in that way, I think helps keep you grounded and keeps you in a really good place, and is probably going to have a good chance of encouraging others to explore what's maybe more possible with a team, as well. And I think that's very admirable, even though you have no control ultimately over what people are going to do or say. So you can control you, and just try to yeah, be the best that you can.
There's a quote I came across last week that I really loved. I want to get your take on it. Maybe you completely disagree, in which case, all ears would love to hear it. The quote is: mastery is repetition. Repetition is an opportunity to know something at its deepest level. Do it 1,000 times over. Study the intricacies that no one else can see. Embrace the dualistic relationship between you and it. This sacred process molds you and you it.
Yeah, the word that comes to mind, um, yeah, is depth, and um, I think it's scary to go to a deep place with some things, whether that be yeah, or a mastery of something, because it requires probably a lot of yourself, and it requires time, and it requires patience, and it requires hardship. It requires so many things, right? And um, yeah, it's I think human nature for a lot of people to maybe not want to, or to be fearful of going to those depths, and or yeah, if you're pursuing mastery, there's probably fear of like, I'm putting all this in there and I don't know if I'm actually going to master something, or am I going to reach this satisfactory level of, you know, I okay, it was worth it. And so it's kind of scary. And that's what this sport can be sometimes. It's, hey, I can put all this in there, but what do I get out of it? And um, it's a good reminder to be like, hey, maybe ask yourself, what is mastery, or what's going to define that? And it's usually not this yeah, I get to this moment and I feel completely satisfied, and ultimately that's why I think you go back to process and be like, hey, what are the things that, as I'm pursuing the mastery of something, whether it be running or something else in life, or um, that am I getting better? Am I learning more about myself? Am I helping others along the way? And thinking more in terms of that than anything else, and then you'll realize like, wow, I probably have a lot more depth and understanding of whether it be your relationship with running or your relationship with other things in your life. And so the perspective that you have, and truly what you value in the pursuit of mastery, or um, yeah, just your passions, is that's the important question to ask.
just hit midnight in Paris, and the deep thoughts are he's still articulating them. Love that one. I think there's a lot of substance and depth there. Not to steal your word there, that I'm going to chew on. Speaking of mastery and someone who does this sport at the highest level, I would define it as mastery. Elise Cranny, you recently started coaching her this year. How did this come about, and what's that process been like as you've journeyed with her to this point, the pinnacle of the sport?
Yeah, Elise reached out to me in March of this year, and we've been friends for a really long time, for almost 10 years, and so yeah, we definitely keep up with each other, and so I wasn't yeah, it wasn't weird that she was reaching out. We're really good friends. I didn't expect to have a conversation about her, wanting to explore a coach athlete relationship, and so yeah, we had some really good conversations about that, and she's someone that I love so dearly, and she's such a great friend, and yeah, I really wanted to just like be really thorough in working together to see what this could look like before jumping into it, and um, yeah, I feel so blessed and privileged that I'm able to be a coach for her in this thing that's really important to her and help her in this way. And so yeah, dove in the deep end with trying to build a great foundation, early on in March, and it was certainly challenging because in an Olympic year, or really any year, March is definitely getting into right before you don't have a lot of time before some of these important pieces of the season, um, and so, yeah, it was really cool that we had this foundation together, and we didn't like have to maybe spend all this time just getting to know each other first. And so I think there was just a really natural, seamless transition into some of the coaching aspects because we just didn't have to jump over as many hurdles with that connection first. And so was able to, I think, just dive into some deeper pieces. Together and build this foundation early, and ultimately things have there were some real challenges in the first months together. Elise was coming off of just a challenging time in her running and her life, and I really wanted to kind of help her with way more of like her some emotional and mental aspects of her well-being, more than the training, and so just like really delicately working together to move forward, and was just patient with that, and it was really cool that from a running aspect of it, things started progressing really nicely over time, and was able to hit at the right time, and in May and June, and get herself to this place, being able to compete at the highest level at the Olympic Games. But it was a very what I would attribute to is her, like, man, Elise Cranny is like such an amazing person, and she's humble, and she's so open and receptive to learning and growth, and her humility is something I've learned so much. I've learned so much from her about that really strong aspect of who she is. But then also just like her willingness to dive into what she's passionate about and be really vulnerable. She's taught me probably more than I've taught her in these last few months, and so it's really special to get to kind of celebrate that together here, and see, just explore and see what's possible at the very, very biggest stage in the world, and see that as a privilege and be excited about it, and try to be bold and courageous as she attacks this challenge, but not make it something so different and so outside of like everything else that we do. But this isn't going to define who she is and her identity, or change change what's really important to her, and so I'm excited to see her just like embrace this challenge with like excitement, because like her whole life isn't riding on this. She already is very secure in who she is, and that's something I'm really proud of in working with her. And so excited to see just her like have the freedom to explore what's possible at this stage, and what most people would deem the most valuable and important stage in our sport.
A word you used to describe her was humble humility. In my experience with her, that is definitely the case. Anyone who knows her will smile at that word in relation to her because they know that's the case. How important do you think the quality of humility is as an athlete who's trying to get the most out of themselves? And how would you define the word as well?
The her humility to me is very much her like yeah her willingness to grow and learn, and her willingness to know that like, hey, I don't have it all figured out, but then like there's that doesn't take away from like her tenacity and her like yeah her desire to like really get try to beat these girls and be competitive and be ferocious. Like it's not separate things. um to me, like her humility is like, hey, I'm gonna you know I'm going to listen, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to get feedback, and I'm going to be honest, and I'm just going to be really authentic. And it's yeah she's not an arrogant person, and she's just so willing to grow and so willing to learn. And so like that's kind of what I see in her humility, that it's even as one of the most accomplished athletes in the world, and very successful, like she has now with me, who's a young coach, that she's my only professional athlete. Like she could really just be like, hey, like I already know what I want to do, and you're just a safe person to do that with, and I'm going to do my thing, and I don't have much to learn from you. Like she's open, and she's curious, and that's where I see the humility come in. And so it's been such a joy working with her. Um and and yeah, I hope she's learning from me, but I certainly know that I'm learning a lot from her. But yeah, don't get it mixed up with like, she's not like ferocious and like a baller woman who's like doing amazing things. Like she's that too, and you're gonna see like a really hopefully like almost like scary version of Elise Craney at the Olympic Games. Like she wants to get after these women, and so like that's the cool combination I think that she has, that makes her so good. You know, and that's really fun to be around. She's not timid.
Coach, wrapping up here, respecting your time. You got to get the 8 hour, or probably not 8 hours of sleep. I don't know. You got to get your sleep. Speaking of sleep, have you read Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker? If not,
I
that's
have
your
not.
homework.
I
Really?
probably should, right? It's yeah, my sleep, I having four young kids, and yeah, sleep is maybe more elusive to me than others in my lifestyle, but
Okay, well, this is my homework for you between podcast 2 and 3. I know busy time at the Olympics, and then your athletes will come back, but find time for this book. I mean, I genuinely mean it. It was probably one of the most influential books that has shaped my life thus far. And one of my doctors, he's a per cervical chiropractor, uh, unbelievable wise guy. I'm the godfather to, they've got 5 boys. I'm the godfather to the 5th one. And so I bought him this book we would just send each other books all about health and whatnot. And he was like, yeah, this is changing the way I'm attending to my patients. And yeah, it's crazy. I could talk about sleep endlessly. That's why I just got an energetic jolt. But like, I mean, one of the crazy stats is people now on average spend more times on their phones than they do sleeping. And it's like, oh man, where are we going as a society? But anyways, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. I've probably talked about it on podcasts before. If you want the quick bullet point, watch the TED Talk. I think it's 15 minutes, Matthew Walker. And then if you want the step up, he did a great podcast with Rich Roll, probably like 2.5 hours. And then the full sauce is the book. So that's my recommendation for you. Anyways, you got to get your sleep. Final question for you. Sorry about that rant. Paris, off the track. What's something that is on your bucket list? Maybe you talked to your wife, or she said you got to go to this place or try this thing, outside of maybe eating a croissant or something. What's on your bucket list?
gosh, to be honest, I haven't even thought about it. Like my whole world is just Elise Cranny while I'm here, and she races Friday, and she races Monday, and so I'll be here for like 2 extra days after that, and So maybe I'll get to think about it then. But I think part of my job and my responsibility as a coach is like that's the only thing on my mind. That's why I'm here, and is to be in this fight with her and this journey with her. And so I wish I had a better answer from you, but like I'm so dialed into um, just what I'm here to do, and so uh, I would say I'm happy to have that focus, and that's why I'm here. And so yeah, hopefully maybe I'll get to enjoy Paris a little bit for some other aspects outside of that afterwards. But it's you know this is a place, and where I really find joy is with people. And Elise and I have a really special relationship, and so to get to be here with her, pursuing what she loves and what I love at the highest level in the world is, man, that's all I could ever ask for. And so maybe I'll get a bonus croissant in there or something afterwards. But I hope even if I do, or I get to go see something cool, that it's with people I really love and care about, because that's ultimately what's going to make it better than anything else.
Coach Cornfield, you're 101. Really appreciate the conversation. This one was a ton of fun, insight packed. Looking forward to listening back myself and learning from you all the more. I definitely have some takeaways from this one. So thank you so much. Go get the sleep. Go, Elise. And we'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks Dominic for having me. Yeah, tune in, cheer for Elise Granny, please. She's the best, and yeah, I'll look forward to episode number 3 with us in the future, and maybe I'll give you an update on my sleep patterns.
Love it.